Hello viewer and welcome once again. This is the Bible Journey. We are here to continue with the Bible analysis program, and with me on set today is starting from my far left, Pastor Dan Abuya. Welcome, Pastor.
Thank you very much. Pleasure being here.
Thank you. And of course, next to me here is Pastor John Kabira.
Thank you, viewer, and you're welcome.
And of course, we are sorry we have one of our missing pastors, that is Pastor Nyaga. He is not with us today, but he'll be joining us later as we continue with this journey. And of course, glad that you are tuned in to this program as we continue with our studies. So as we begin, let's begin with the word of prayer from Pastor John Kabira.
Let's pray. Our gracious Lord in heaven, we are about to open your word. May you illuminate us that we may be able to understand why this book of Genesis was written for us and for the salvation of our souls. For we pray this in Jesus' name.
Amen. Amen. Thank you very much. And of course, today is the book of Genesis, and the chapter is 48. Now, pastors, welcome to our analysis today. I don't know, when you look at the book of Genesis, chapter 48, what in particular are we expecting to be discussing today, Pastor Dan? What are the major themes here?
Right, just about 2-3 chapters away from finishing the book of Genesis.
And we are very close.
That is right, yeah. This book is also starting to draw us to the close of the patriarch Jacob's life. And so it is an end, yet a beginning of a new dispensation. So I think it's a fittingly put chapter towards the end of the book of Genesis. Yeah, we'll be seeing a lot of goodbyes. People don't like goodbyes, but it's a reality of life. And so we encounter that in this particular chapter.
All right. And Pastor Kabira?
Well, in addition to what Pastor said, I don't like the chapter myself because it had covered us in a nice way. Because as soon as we get into Exodus, we feel like, where was God? Here, I can see God, and then finally, you know, it's like the end of the good things before slavery begins. Yeah. So for me, it always feels like this is about to end into something bad. But of course, in a nicer way, there is parental blessings, the role of blessings of parents, the role of grandparents. Also, I'm also able to see the role of grandparents and parents. Right. And is there really a meaning for when we say your parents will bless you? You need blessings from your parents. What does it mean? Does it have repercussion? And of course, we're able to see how God works with our parents to bless us in our future. Yeah.
So, and the blessings surely hold. Let's begin from verse 1. Then I'll be asking us a question there. Verse 1 of chapter 48 says, "And it came to pass after these things that one told Joseph, Behold, thy father is sick. And he took with him his 2 sons, Manasseh and Ephraim." Of course, Manasseh was the eldest. Verse 2, "And one told Jacob and said, Behold, thy son Joseph cometh unto thee. And Israel strengthened himself and sat upon the bed." Verse 3, "And Jacob said unto Joseph, God Almighty appeared unto me at Luz in the land of Canaan and blessed me." And the first thing that I'm asking myself here is, why does Jacob choose to give an account, when you get to verse 3, of his previous encounter with God to Joseph?
Right, yeah. I think for us to appreciate the answer better, maybe there is an early answer we need to, rather question we want to seek, to ask first of all. Joseph is going to see his father. Yeah. His father is about to die. And I don't know if you have taken note of verse 2. I'm still answering your question.
Yes, verse 2. "And one told Jacob and said, Behold, thy son Joseph cometh unto thee. And Israel strengthened himself and sat upon the bed."
So right away, you know, at that juncture, you realize this is an important moment. This is somebody. If you're sick, I've had this experience where a patient doesn't want to see somebody. And when you go to see them, they actually lose, for real, not even pretending. Yes. They even lose their sense of hearing or even sight. They don't see you. You are, what will people tell them that, well, you know, your son is here to see you, and is just there on the bed, just plastic, catatonic. And then the person that he likes comes to see them. All of a sudden, they're able to see. They wake up and they hear.
Yeah.
That happens, yeah. That, you know, selective amnesia. I think Joseph was not only old, but sickly, we are told here, rather Jacob, yeah. And when Joseph comes, he actually gathers strength. You know, he gains some strength and is more conscious and alert. That tells you the importance of this character, Joseph.
Maybe before he answers, I know he's continuing to answer.
Right.
How about emphasis on verse 1?
All right.
It came to pass after these things.
Right.
We don't know these things. Of course, that is after the whole drama of come to Egypt and what have you. Joseph was told, indeed, your father is sick.
Right.
That means two things. Joseph is in a different place to his father. Joseph is in the city. His father is in the village.
Right.
Joseph is in Nairobi. His father is in Kisii. I hope you're getting it.
Yes.
Okay.
Was told, indeed, your father is sick. That means he must have been getting a progress report, number one.
Right.
Number two, he was concerned about his parents. And for him to take his two sons, it meant he understood the essence of this time.
All right. Right, yeah.
He interpreted that the father,
Even
the old
if he
man
didn't
must be
interpret,
going.
you know, he really wanted, his children were born in Egypt. Let's go to the village, see your grandfather. He was a man of God. That's a guy I want you to see.
Right.
The essence of this is, Jacob did not call for Joseph.
Right.
It's Joseph who went. Jacob did not call for two children.
The grandchildren.
The grandchildren. No, he didn't call. It's Joseph who took them. Of course, later we'll come to imagine. Imagine if Joseph had not taken Manasseh and Ephraim. Who would have blessed them?
That's right, yeah.
Imagine if Jacob had not strengthened up. I don't know. I want to imagine from the side. Let him deal with Jacob. Let me deal with Joseph. Joseph was doing so much noble task that is unbelievable.
All right.
He had all the money. Normally nowadays, those who have money, what they do is they send a nurse to go take care of the parents. You build your parents a house and leave them there. When they're about to die, all you just do is you will call us to this upper KICC, what is it called? This Garden Square for contribution. But prior, you were not there.
Right.
For me, this is one of those things that shows how much Joseph really understood the essence of God's promise. That he was not just a normal child, number one. And secondly, there was a promise that he wanted to follow up. That's the reason he's carrying along his own children. He doesn't want his children born in Egypt to just, to disappear like that. And of course, again, it also talks to us about taking care of your parents in up country.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know how many of us do this. If our parents are in Nairobi, you're very lucky. Parents who are in up country, when they are sick, what do? Look at Joseph, and he's not just a normal person. I remember when Obama was here, he said something about traveling up country. He says, I will come back when all these trappings of power will be gone. It will be easier for me now to be able to visit.
Right.
But this is Joseph with the trappings of power, not father is sick. Let me just go home.
Sure.
I know there are parents who are crying out right now. I don't know which camera do I use. There are parents who are crying out now for their children. Where are the children? Those of us who are in Nairobi and those of us who are in town. We need to be able to go back to. Of course, it looks like I'm ending. Let him continue with Jacob.
You're not ending. We are beginning, and thanks for pointing out that. Maybe let me answer that. I think there are issues here that we need a little bit to scratch a little bit here. Yeah. So that was verse 3.
Yes.
Verse 3, that God Almighty appeared to me at Luz in the land of Canaan and blessed me. And he gives a full account, of the encounter that it was.
And the blessing itself.
Of the blessing itself, Jacob is recounting, he knows that he's now about to leave a legacy behind. And at this stage, even the current, the experts in human growth and development and behavior, human behavior, at this stage, at old age, your greatest concern is what legacy am I leaving behind? Right here. Yeah. Will my legacy continue? Or the boys are going to mess it up? Right here. Yeah. So it is very pertinent that he recites and tries to instill and ensures that there is somebody else who gets this right, who will never forget the promise of God, who will never forget the journey we are on. They are on a journey. It's very clear that his role is about to, end, and somebody has to pick it on. Lest everybody forgets, Joseph has come to visit. It is about my last hour. I need once again to recite it. So this is nothing new. This is the promise of God.
Has he lost confidence in the other sons, especially the eldest ones? Because nowhere else are we told that he told his sons, whoever, Simeon, Reuben, or whoever else, that God appeared unto me. But now it comes to this point, when Joseph visits, he recounts. He tells him of the account, the encounter with God. He told Joseph. Has he lost confidence in all his sons?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Or is it just because he's powerful and therefore somebody powerful has come from Egypt? I have to, give more details?
Not really. What I was getting here is I'm seeing a consistency in Abraham when he's about to sacrifice his son Isaac. He recounts to him the promise of God.
Right.
That was in, I think, that is in chapter 21. Chapter 21 and chapter 22, where Abraham's faith is what? That is what he says in chapter 22. In chapter 27, Isaac now recounts the same blessings to Jacob.
Right.
Again. And so what Jacob is doing, I believe he's still doing the same. Why is he telling Joseph? Because Joseph, remember, has spent most of his adult life away in Egypt.
Right.
So he needs to be reminded that in as much as you've brought us here, where there was food, there is our God. Remember what we said, I think it's in chapter 47 or chapter 46, where we are talking about, he kept on reminding them that when I die, take my bones.
My bones back.
When this and that happens, when he's meeting with Pharaoh, he recounts back. He's been
and
constant.
Even in this chapter also,
even in this chapter,
he ends by
has to repeat
Joseph,
it again.
You will go back to Canaan. And you will take me back.
So the emphasis, the emphasis therefore is not about, it's not who is told, but it's for Joseph to remember that once again, despite you being senior, despite you being here, we belong to Canaan, our God. That what you hear now for, you see what he says, God, he said, behold, I'll make you fruitful and multiply you, and I'll make you a multitude of people and give this land to your descendants after you as an everlasting possession. He's repeating that even if you're here, Joseph, remember, we have our own land. And that's where we will be. And that is what God promised me.
Sure, right. Yeah.
I know the answer because Joseph's response in verse 9 is also about, they are my sons whom God has given me in this place. So Joseph responds to Jacob by saying, don't worry about me. I have remembered.
I'm clear about our mission.
Yes, I'm here about mission. Remember what he named his children? Every now and then the reference was in. So it's like I'm seeing a father and a child reminding each other of, my son, you're a Christian. I hope when I die, you continue being a Christian.
Keep the faith.
Keep the faith.
Right.
And Joseph says, don't worry, Dad, I will keep the faith.
Right. Besides Thor, actually in addition to contradict, Joseph now seems to be the man in control here. Yeah. He actually has got a lot of sway in them.
They have come here because of him.
They have come here because of him.
Yes.
And because of his power, actually, he has got the resources to either thwart, sabotage the mission, and keep the brothers there. He can even kill all of them. After the father is dead. We are going to see that revisited actually in chapter 50. Or he can keep alive the flame. So Joseph is a very important character here, but it's not losing total confidence, because remember the chapters before, we have already seen that he now has confidence in Judah, who is gradually taking over. But Joseph is a critical character that you cannot ignore at this point, because basically they are there courtesy of Joseph. Yeah.
Now, as we get down to verse 5,
right.
The scripture says...
Now, before verse 5, Nick, I did promise that there's a lot to scratch below the surface that we touched here. what Pastor Wakabira was bringing out, and I think this is very important. Our task, our duty to our parents in their old age.
Yes.
Yeah. So please just allow us to revisit that again briefly.
Fine.
Really, we have a divine duty, a mandate. Nowadays, there's a lot of talk like, you educate children, not that they come to help you, but they help themselves. And there's a lot of truth in that. But it is also important that we know that, yes, we also do that so that we can take care of our parents at their old age. It reminds me in the book Adventist Home, White has written about when you are about to choose your spouse. And she cautions men to watch the character keenly of the lady they're about to take as a wife, or might take them away from the company of their parents. And she writes now and says word for word that the parents who should have gained a daughter end up losing a son. So you remain in Nairobi, you just are swimming in opulence, in your lavish house and all that, but the parents back home, they are literally swimming in poverty, really. So we have that duty right here. And the grandchildren,
Yes.
in fact, Proverbs, could you get the verse, Pastor, for me? Proverbs, it says that the grandchildren are the crown to the grandparents here, in the old age here. So we need to be cognizant of this fact. Take the grandchildren to their grandparents, because the Bible is clear, it is their crown. They rejoice in that. In fact, Jacob says, I'm trying to get the verse where he says that how beautiful it is that I've seen now not only you, but now even your children. Yeah, verse 11.
Verse
11. Israel said to Joseph, I had not thought to see your face, but in fact, God has also shown me your offspring. See the beauty, how they rejoice when they see their little grandchildren. That shows them that God is blessing me.
Wow.
Proverbs,
of
what he was reading.
Yes.
Proverbs 17, I hope it's the one. Children's children, of course.
Aha, that's right.
I don't know if
That's
that's
right.
the one you meant.
Yeah.
Children's children, that is grandchildren, are the crown of old men. And the glory of children is their father.
All right.
Father's Day after this.
And of course, something to emphasize there to whoever is watching, what you have said here, that we need to take care of the old folk back in the village, because most of the times they are back in the village and we are in cities. So we need to have time, go back to the villages, visit with them, and make them happy and always take care of them. Yeah.
He had said it's a divine mandate. Not just go there. God requires us. What I wanted to say is it's also in reverse. There are blessings that are specifically from parents.
All right.
Do not underestimate parents' advice. I hear some people complaining, why do we need to go and seek consent from my parents to marry? I see people complaining. Of course, there are parents who have unreasonable demands. But it's very important, go back to your parents for the blessings. Parents' blessings are also divine by extension. And that is what Joseph recognizes. Remember, Jacob is a product of divine blessings from his parents, and that is why he is here today. That's why we're discussing Jacob more than Esau.
Right.
Divine parents, where parents' blessings have become divine blessings.
All right.
Similarly, how Isaac, who was literally the second-born, but he's the firstborn, who was born after Ishmael, gets most of the blessings from Abraham. That is, parental blessings have shifted. Of course, God through the parents has given blessings that have been channeled through a parent. They're very important. Sometimes, even if they are unlearned, even if they don't look like they understand, parents always have some good wisdom. What was it? I think I saw something. There's a quote going on social media around, young people can run faster, but the old ones know the way.
All right.
The older ones know the way.
You may run faster and get
you
lost.
can run faster, but you don't know where you're going. But the older ones know the way. Even if they're going slowly, finally they will get there. For me, it makes sense in this scenario. And I think that is what Joseph was trying to talk about.
Now that you've really talked about the blessings of our parents, the old ones back at home, would I be right? Sometimes they have too much demands here, like you've talked out, unreasonable demands. And sometimes they want to, you might insist on doing the right thing. and then they keep on refusing, no, you cannot do that, and in your right conscience you know that this is the thing that I should do, then you go ahead and do it, and they say, I'll curse you. And they even go ahead and mention some bad things about you. And should I fear as a young man when I'm doing the right thing against my parents' will?
Well, well, the Bible command to obey parents, it's better amplified in Ephesians 6:1. As a memory text, children love that, yeah. So it says, children.
The commandment.
That's right, yeah. Obey your children.
Obey your parents in the Lord.
Yeah, that is right, yeah. So what I'm trying to answer briefly your question by saying, presuming what you are saying, because most of the time we are seldom right. Oftentimes we are arrogant. I'm talking about the young people. Yes. Yeah. But in the cases where a young man, as with all humility, you know, you can be right, but also the way you present it it may be wrong. Yeah. So let's say it's a young man, your parent is not even a Christian, and you're a Christian, converted, and you know what is right. Still, the way you present your desires or demands before your parents, it equally matters. So it's not just about being right, it's also how you are practicing that right. So of course, presuming that you are right, in all humility, in all patience, you have tried to help your parents see what you are trying to, say. Let's say it's a spouse you are choosing, and they're like, no, he's from a different tribe. You know, what I counsel the young people is, take time. Take time. Instead of saying that you are tribal or whatever, maybe your parent has an intuition. Yeah. Because they love you, and they are not able to express it properly, so they use that as a cover-up and say that I don't like that tribe. So why don't you take time to bring them to your side, to help them appreciate the beauty, the goodness you have seen in this wonderful person that you love, gradually. But I'm saying that if they are totally malicious, outrightly malicious, and you've taken all your time, you don't have to be afraid of their curses. Yeah. So
you just go ahead
it
and
is
do
in the
right
Lord.
thing.
Yeah, we obey our parents in the Lord.
Now, in the next 5 minutes, we'll be taking a short break, and I'm seeing that we haven't done much. But in verse 5, quickly, right. And now thy two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, are mine. Jacob chooses to adopt these two sons of Joseph. And first of all, I don't know, would we get the meaning? What does, we always have significance in names. And Manasseh and Ephraim, Pastor Kabira, if you can just help us understand, do they have meanings?
Well, I'll go to chapter 41.
Yes.
We see how he was able to name them. Chapter 41, verse 51, 51 and 52, Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, for God has made me forget all my toil and all my father's house. Then verse 52, and the name of the second he called Ephraim, for God has caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. Already he provides the name and the meaning.
And the meaning. Sure. And then he chooses to adopt the two. And my question would be, whom do they replace? Because at the end of the day, we'll have 12 tribes in Israel. And we already have 12 sons. We, of course, know what has been happening. But then here are two more incoming, and they are adopted now, not even as grandchildren. They take the place of like sons. They are now like sons of Jacob. That's right. And whose positions do they take? The patriarchal culture of the Hebrews, the eldest son had a prime position of taking a double portion. Yeah. So the parents, if you had an estate, they would normally take twice, then the others would follow. The eldest was Reuben. And because of what he did, that birthright of double portion, it now goes to Joseph. Yeah. So by adopting his two sons, they take the two portions from Reuben. So Reuben is the one who will have had a double portion. Remember, as we go down here, by the way, we are covering a lot. Yeah, it's not. We are still moving maybe back and forth. Sure. But he does promise him, actually at the end of the chapter, to give him one more portion, more than the rest of the brethren when they get back to the land of Canaan. That is verse 22. It says, moreover,
I have given to you one portion above your brothers, which I took from the hand of the Amorite with my sword and my bow. So the firstborn had two privileges. Number one, to take a double portion. Number two, to maintain the priesthood of the family. Reuben misses both of that. The priesthood goes to Levi, the Levites, and the double portion, Joseph's house. So through Ephraim and Manasseh. So that's what happened.
Once you say he takes the double portion to mean this one go to Manasseh, through Manasseh and Ephraim, we still now have 13.
No. No, Joseph, Manasseh and Ephraim.
Joseph's place is also taken by his son.
When you read chapter 49, for example, Jacob called his sons together to bless them. He's already adopted Ephraim and Manasseh, but he does not refer to them directly. He talks to Joseph.
Right, yeah.
So Ephraim and Manasseh are in the place of Joseph.
They subsumed.
Yes.
Joseph, yeah.
So now, of course, it's later where we don't have Joseph. You read 1 Chronicles, 1 Chronicles 5 verse 1, says something what Pastor Dan is saying. I want to see if I can summarize myself quickly. It's not what I do.
First Chronicles?
First Chronicles, yes.
Chapter the sons of Reuben, the firstborn of Israel.
Yes.
He was indeed the firstborn, but because he defiled his father's bed, his birthright was given to the sons of Joseph,
yes,
the son of Israel, so that the genealogy is not listed according to the birthright.
Yes. Yeah. So you see, what happens is, so it's like what he's saying, it's the blessings that are due the firstborn were given to somebody else. The double blessings of firstborn, now it's like two children are now there. Double means two. So these two children of Joseph pick up the blessings of being the firstborn. That is the double blessings. Of course, as he says, the Levitical blessings, the priestly, went also to somebody else.
Right.
I think it's at this point that I should be able to mention that these are literal tribes of Israel. But there is some time where we take it out of context and discard it there is some time that God uses symbolically and sometimes God uses what?
Right.
Literally.
Literally.
This is literally. Then time for symbolic will come later, and that will be much more later. So for now, we can only dwell with the literal blessings that come to these children.
Wow, thank you. And viewer, we are taking a short break, but don't go away because we'll be back. Remember, it's the Bible Journey, and meet us also on our social media platforms. That is on Facebook, Hope Channel Kenya, and on Twitter at Hope_Kenya. So we are coming back shortly. Welcome back, our dear viewer. It's the Bible Journey, and of course we are here on the book of Genesis chapter 48. Now, pastors, as we went for that break, we were still talking about the blessings that are given to these sons. Now, Joseph has come with the two sons, and of course, is it in verse 6? I would want to read, of course, remember in verse 7, verse 5. And now thy two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, which were born unto thee in the land of Egypt, before I came unto thee into Egypt, are mine. As Reuben and Simeon, they shall be mine. So he chooses to adopt the two. And of course, Pastor said there that they took the double portion. Yeah. Joseph took the double portion through his sons. Verse 6, and thy issue, which thou begettest after them, shall be thine, and shall be called after the name of their brethren in their inheritance. Pastor, if you can mention briefly the other sons to be born to Joseph, named after their inheritance.
I actually don't have them offered, but the point here is Jacob is really insisting that these two sons are now mine. Yes. Even their siblings, the third born, Kwendelea, they will be called by their name, not by Joseph's name. No. You know, like I'm Dana Buya. My father is Onyancha. So what it means is that if my dad has adopted my son, my siblings, they'll be called not by my father's name, but by my son's name. Yeah, that is right. Yeah. Okay. So to confirm that. But I think you're looking for verse 8. Verse 8. That is where Jacob notices the two boys.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Verse 8, and Israel beheld Joseph's sons and said, who are these? Verse 9, and Joseph said unto his father, they are my sons whom God hath given me in this place. And he said, bring them, I pray thee, unto me, and I'll bless them. Maybe I should read to verse 11, then you can comment there. Verse 10, now the eyes of Israel were dim for age, so that he could not see, and he brought them near unto him, and he kissed them and embraced them. Verse 11, and Jesus said unto Joseph, I had not thought to see thy face, and lo, God hath shewed me thy seed also. Now, Pastor Kabira, it's that point where he starts to bless them. And of course the scripture says that it's like he hadn't seen them before. And then he sees them and discovers, oh, we have some two little boys here. Who are these? Then Joseph starts to explain to them. But there's this point that he mentions, who are these? And Joseph answers, they are my sons who God has given me while in this place. What's the significance of that?
Yes, no, because I was trying to remember, there's something he was explaining about... you know, when a patient sees somebody,
selective
they have come, but all he can see is his son.
Yeah.
And he says,
the most important.
Yes, because he says in verse 11, and Israel said to Joseph, I had not thought to see your face, but in fact, God has also shown me your offspring. You know, for him, seeing Joseph was what was enough. But don't forget, it's not like he didn't know they were there. Yeah. Because he speaks of them in verse 5. And now your two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, who are born to you in the land of Egypt, before I came to you in Egypt, are mine. You see, look at the language here.
Yes. I think also we must not, you know the language here, it is almost implied like Joseph had never visited the father. He had always been visiting regularly. Yes. So even here, the point you brought in, that it's not like he didn't know that they were there.
Yes.
It's even possible that he had seen them several times in various visits. But now we are talking, you know, when people have a sense of occasion. This is an important occasion. That's why everything is being recounted like it never happened. Right.
So it's not, yeah, that is what I was looking for. He's a chaplain. That's why I was using his ideas. For him, he's dealing with one thing after a time. So when you read how he says, how Joseph answers and how Jacob said, it's like they're repeating themselves. They are my sons whom God has given me in this place. Jacob had called them Ephraim and Manasseh, who were born to you in the land of Egypt before I came to you in Egypt, are mine. You know, same point, but in a different perspective. Different people talking about differently. So in real sense, I don't think it's something big. It's like what is explained. It's is it procedure or more like, you know, after one thing, I go to next. How was they always are? They begin with one thing, finish, then methodical. You know, they're following things, they're using some order therein. But what is important for me is the consistency in using two things. God appeared to me, God talked to me, God told me, God has given me. That is the first consistency. God, 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 God. And then secondly is the consistency, which we'll see next, of Ephraim and Manasseh. The difference, you know, instead of Manasseh and Ephraim, we'll see it implied later. Right. You know, he said, your children whom God gave you, Ephraim and Manasseh, are mine. Joseph didn't take it seriously at that particular time. You know, like it's how you know, you can begin with, my children are Aleph and Alpha. You can only say Aleph, Alpha, Alpha, Aleph. Doesn't matter. But he didn't know this was very specific. So until they now come later is when he realized, like, oh, you were serious about Ephraim and Manasseh. No, it's not like that. You know, it's exactly what I want.
Yeah, and especially, let's get there. Let's read verse 12 and 13. And Joseph brought them out from between his knees, and he bowed himself with his face to the earth. And Joseph took them, and maybe in verse 12 still, Pastor, he bowed himself. It ends by it. He bowed himself with his face to the earth, remembering the position, keeping in mind the position of Joseph at this particular point in Egypt, and then bowing to who? Jacob. What is the state of Jacob? He's very old, very frail, and I don't know what does that.
He's the father. He's the symbol of God's blessings, upon this family. So a serious, sign of deference and respect and humility on the side of Joseph, and equally recognizing that he's actually talking to an emissary of God, a channel through which God's purpose is being fulfilled. So this is not a guy who is about to snatch, even if he knows that maybe he's carrying on the legacy, he's not in a hurry to kick out away with the old, in with the new. No.
See, he's still, Joseph in his high position, he still recognizes that this is my father.
That is right.
And of course we have very many people in terms of application who are these big people in the society, but they still have parents. Right. This could probably be a lesson that your parent is still your parent, and you need to respect them. You can't be too big.
You can never be older than your parent.
Beyond your parents.
Wow. And verse 13, and Joseph took them both, Ephraim in his right hand towards Israel's left hand, and Manasseh in his left hand toward Israel's right hand, and brought them near to him. 14, and Israel stretched out his right hand and laid it upon Ephraim's head, who was the younger, and his left hand upon Manasseh's head, guiding his hands wittingly, for Manasseh was the firstborn. 15, and he blessed Joseph and said, God before whom thy father Abraham and Isaac did walk, and the God which fed me all my life long in this unto this day, the angel which redeemed me all evil, bless the lads, and let my name be named on them, and the name of my fathers Abraham and Isaac, and let them grow into a multitude in the midst of the earth. 17, and when Joseph saw that his father laid his right hand upon the head of Ephraim, it displeased him, and he held up his father's hand to remove it from Ephraim's head unto Manasseh's head. And Joseph said unto his father, not so, my father, for this is the firstborn. Put thy right hand upon his head. 19, and his father refused and said, I know it, my son, I know it. He also shall become a people, and he also shall be great. But truly his younger brother shall be greater than he, and his seed shall become a multitude of nations. And I've read all that so that we can comment all together. And Joseph brings his eldest son Manasseh on his left hand side, and then Ephraim on his right hand side, so that they meet Jacob. The right hand side of Jacob will be on the firstborn, and then on Manasseh, and then the left hand side will be on Ephraim. But then Ephraim does like he intertwines his hands and then places them on top of their heads to bless them. And there is an issue there. Maybe Pastor, if you can just come in and give us comments on that.
Well, the Bible in verse 14 uses the word, your version says wittingly, or knowingly. The blessing that Jacob is about to utter here is a prophetic blessing. He tells him that I know. It is like he takes a long shot, like walks in time into the future and sees the purpose of God. So I think it's very important we never lose sight of what we are talking about here, the bigger picture, the greater controversy motive, the salvation agenda. That is exactly what Jacob is drawing to. So it's not even of his own. Just like in Romans, Paul actually puts it very clear that even before the two kids came out, that is talking of Jacob and Esau, came out of the womb and done anything to justify one being blessed than the other, already God had said that the older will serve the younger. That is also what we are seeing here. In a prophetic frame, in a panoramic view, Jacob is able to see to the future and see the purposes of God, how he wants to fulfill them, through whom. That is why he tells him that, I know what I am doing. I am aware. And this man was actually blind. These kids were so young, but he's able to see. So that tells you that there is more than human power here in play. The divine is also
Can I say it was more also of a correction again? Hebrews, let me begin with Hebrews 11:21. By faith, Jacob, when he was dying, blessed each of the sons of Joseph and worshipped, leaning on the top of his staff.
Right.
It tells you that this was not a normal blessing. When Paul is writing, he refers to this as a, as a divine act, more than
That's right,
anything.
yeah.
It wasn't a simple. If it was about blessings, the normal blessings, because we can see in chapter 49, Jacob blesses his children, and he blesses Joseph as a
also,
child.
yeah. Right. Yeah.
But here, it's about passing on of the divine plan of salvation. Let me put it like that simply. And so, when what Joseph is trying to do is trying to bring the humanity angle to God's divine side. And God is saying, I know this is what you are. Of course, it's ironical for me because Joseph, if you would have listened, Joseph is the second last. And he already has the most divine blessings. It should have told Joseph, already I have adopted your children, the two of them.
Right. Yeah.
Yet you're not the firstborn. That should tell you something.
Right.
Jacob is not the firstborn. He is the second. He is the second of the twin. It
Yes.
should have told him. It should have told him that sometimes even that is not what God works with. He works with appointment of a particular person to further his gospel. Whereas humanity, we are used to a particular direction. God has a different way. He doesn't have to choose necessarily. There is no one who deserves to be a prophet. There is no one who deserves to be a priest. There is no one who deserves to be a pastor. But God chooses us out of his own divine wisdom. And that is what Joseph was not getting. And when of course, as I'm saying, that's why I was repeating again. Jacob immediately began by saying, God Almighty appeared to me.
Right.
It was very important for him to say, God is the one. I am not doing this out of my own. I am doing this as a continuation. That is why I was saying from verse 4, it's a recount of the same blessing that has been to Abraham, that has been to Isaac,
That's right.
that is now with Jacob, and he's passing it on to the next generation. Because he knows he will not be there. And he wants them to remember it is God who called Abraham from a place that he was not supposed to be called. From a family of idol worshippers.
Right.
He makes Isaac, who was literally not the firstborn, but he makes him the firstborn. Goes to Jacob, who stole blessings of his brother, but by divine wisdom again. And now we have these two here, and it's now dispersed to 12 of them. God does not follow the channel that we human beings
Usually
we would prefer, or we think that is how we think that there are those who are natural born leaders. Like if I say this, I'll be in the wrong. But anyway, like because your father was this, so therefore you have to be this. My father was a pastor, so I have to be a pastor.
I have to be a pastor.
That's what, for example, somebody like me. God is not what he's doing. This is Joseph. This is Jacob, who is a prophet.
All right.
And so he's doing his prophetic ministry. He will
All
do his
right.
fatherly ministry later
Right.
in chapter 49. But here, he talks about his prophetic ministry.
I think you've really explained it. I would have asked, why does God choose to prefer the lastborn or the secondborn more than the firstborn? Because we've seen this consistency all along. In the case of Esau and Jacob, now we are seeing it again on these two. We've seen it in of course, that one was already explained in the two sons of Abraham. We've seen that happen. And I keep on asking myself, why does God choose to prefer the latter rather than the first? But
you
anyway,
will be adding, it's not the lastborn. Remember, Joseph is not the lastborn.
of course.
It's Benjamin.
In
It's
terms of
Benjamin.
the two sons of Joseph, Manasseh and Ephraim, he prefers Ephraim.
The last
Then,
one, yes.
yeah.
But you see, what I was saying is, we cannot predict like God is going to use this one. So that we say it's only firstborn, it's only lastborn, it's only... What I didn't want us to do is say like God was picking the lastborn. It's only because these are two. If you don't pick A, it's obviously B. It doesn't mean, but in real sense, you see there are so many.
There are other younger siblings
There are other
who
younger
are born to
like
Joseph.
like what he says. The one we were reading
All
about,
the-
the ones who are born to you, but after this there will be others.
That's right, yeah.
We don't even mention it. So it's not about specific second, it's not about specific last, it's not about specific first. God has preordained us, all of us, to salvation. But as soon as you go away from it, God will choose somebody else let me say, it is random to us human beings, but to God there is a plan.
Wow, but you know, just okay, it's fine, but then you know, I'm feeling it for the firstborns, being the fact that you know, the firstborn for Abraham was Ishmael, but then the blessings went to Isaac. The firstborn to Isaac was Esau. The blessings went to Jacob. The firstborn to Jacob was Reuben. He lost everything and it went to the grandchildren of, you know, but then let's move on.
No, before you go, something come to think of it.
And I'm asking myself, would it be the case even currently that firstborns are like a caste or doomed or something?
No. Even then,
yes.
I think
it continued.
It wasn't about cursing. By the way, Ishmael was equally blessed.
Yes.
Actually with 12 princes, just like Isaac, later on through Jacob. Yeah, so you follow through and you're going to get here 12 tribes of Ishmael also, yeah. And so it's not about cursing. Even in this case, you know what he says? Huh? Actually, let's read that. Huh? When Joseph corrects the father, verse 18, and he says, "Not so, my father, for this one is the firstborn. Put your right hand on his head." 19, father refused and said, "I know, my son, I know. He also shall become a people, and he also shall be great. But truly, this younger one shall be greater." So it is not that the other ones are cursed. Huh? They are also blessed.
Yes.
Even Reuben was blessed. He was a nation, But
Right.
the others are blessed more for a purpose. This is very important.
Okay.
It is for a purpose.
And in terms of just asking some question here, in normal circumstances, you know, we've seen this hand, and Joseph insists, you know, when Jacob intertwines his hands, the right hand, it seems to have more significance than the left hand. The right hand seems to be superior to the left hand. And he says, no, it can't be so, for this is the firstborn. So he wants to place the right hand on Manasseh, but at the same time, they still have hands on their heads. The two sons, they still have hands on their heads. But then he prefers the right should be on the firstborn and the left should be on the secondborn. At this particular point is the younger. So do these hands still hold any significance as they held then? Would it be...
You know, that reminds me, when I was being ordained as an elder.
Yes,
so we were
they placed right hands on you.
We were many, so I realized the pastor who was ordaining, it was Pastor Dr. Macharia. And so he had to lay both of his hands on our heads. So I deliberately moved because I didn't want to. There
you have it. Yeah.
But
do they hold
significance?
Misconception,
really. Even some parents, they beat their young ones that watch out to me, mkono ya left, tabia mbaya. You know, and really Obama is left-handed, and a lot of great men and women are left-handed. But there's our human, you know, God expresses himself in he comes to our context, he becomes immanent, Emmanuel, so that we can understand what he's trying to do. So that is why you find the right, you know, the right hand, the sheep, the left hand, you know, the goats, and so on.
And the Son, of course, the Son, Jesus Christ, sits on the right-hand side of God.
It's for imagery purposes.
It's for imagery.
It's for imagery.
Also sits on the left hand of God. Is it Satan? No, it's not.
No, you cannot say like that.
Maybe us, like me and you, will sit on his left-hand side.
Does that mean you're not good?
No, we are inferior to Christ.
What I'm saying is, in addition, let's not put, you know, some people want to make everything.
That's right. Yeah.
You know, what do we call now? There's an aspect of making the Bible
too much out of
that
everything
has a different meaning. Everything is symbolic. Everything. Of course, here the significance was the right hand was for blessings for the firstborn.
Right.
It wasn't.
It's really a cultural thing.
It's cultural, just like kneeling down. You know, we should not be able to read down like when you get to, if your parents to bless you, you should also kneel down and bow down. He can bless you from where he will be able.
It's just a sign of humility.
It's a sign of humility. That's why we kneel down when we're praying. It's not like God cannot hear us when we're standing or we're lying down. So let's not put a lot of that. What I wanted to add was sometimes the person who was due a blessings negates it by his actions.
All right.
And then it's handed over to the next person. Israel had been chosen. Israel as a nation, Romans 9, had been chosen as the people who will explain God's character to this world. But they refused that priority. And so it was extended to everybody else.
Right, yeah.
Sometimes we are due our blessings, but through our conduct,
That's right.
we negate the
Surrender
blessings.
that, yeah.
Sometimes, can I say, like what God has got good plans for us. But what do? Through our conduct, through our behavior, we reject those blessings. Does that mean that those blessings don't go on? No. They now pass on to the next person that God chooses. It's not like God doesn't have a plan. God has a plan, a good plan for every one of us, including us firstborn. I am a firstborn myself. We always call ourselves assistant parents.
Yeah, that's how
yes, it's very true. We are
all
assistant
over.
parents, firstborn. But there's some firstborns who have lost their responsibility.
That's right.
They have lost, just like Esau, he didn't consider it something big.
That's
we
right.
cannot blame Jacob. Esau is the one who took lightly the issue about being firstborn. Reuben also took lightly the issues of being firstborn.
Right.
So they were passed on to somebody else. When you're born first, it is a very good privilege. But if you dilly-dally with it, if you play around with this privilege, God hands it over.
But
Just
somebody
even including
would want to say, Pastor, that a child is a child.
Yes, a child is a child. It's
Doesn't
very
matter
fine.
when they come first or second.
But when the fact that you were born first means you'll have to take care of the second. The second one cannot take care of the first one. But if this is, let's say, it is natural,
The natural
that
order.
whatever the natural order, just like a man and a woman. You remember Abigail and Nabal. Nabal is supposed to be the father of this house, but he neglects his duty. What happens? Abigail takes over. So we have people in this world who have been given that privilege of being a leader. When they neglect it, doesn't mean the leadership skills get lost. They are passed on to the next one.
Privilege comes with responsibility all
Yes,
the time.
yes, yes.
Yeah. I quickly wanted to read Isaiah 41:10. The right and left, fear not, I'm with you. And the last phrase says that I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. There is always a perception that the right hand is stronger than the left hand. And indeed, naturally, because of more use with the right hand, that actually happens in real life here. So it is drawing from this. A lot of divine things, we draw lessons from the natural, the world of nature. Yeah. So it is in that sense that we see all these things. It doesn't mean that the left hand is a curse or what, but oftentimes it is weaker and the right seems to be stronger. So the younger one or the older is not blessed or cursed, but the implication would be that you have more blessings, which means more responsibility. To whom much has been given,
Much will
says,
be
much will be
demanded.
demanded.
Let's read, because I see we have less than 3 minutes to wind up. Verse 21 and 22, as we summarize the last two verses. And Israel said to Joseph, Behold, I die, but God shall be with you and bring you again unto the land of your fathers. Moreover, I have given to thee one portion above thy brethren, which I took out of the hand of the Amorite with my sword and with my bow. And especially, I just want to, I was looking at the last words of Jacob, because after this, it's the blessings and then he's done. It's done for him. I was looking at the confidence with which he says the last words, especially verse 21. And Israel said to Jacob, Behold, I die, but God shall be with you and bring you again unto the land of your fathers. I don't know what that speaks to you, pastors, as you look at the confidence with which this patriarch died. Having known the life that this particular patriarch lived, I see him being so confident.
Very confident.
And does it speak something to us as a people today?
Nick, wait until we do verse 49. It's even more dramatic. He finishes saying,
Yes.
verse 33, 49. When Jacob had finished commanding his sons, he drew his feet up into the bed and breathed his last and was gathered to his people. This is the sense
so
of purpose.
confidently.
Yeah, we've talked about this before, and I think, Pastor, the element of purpose, we've been talking about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have to discover your purpose.
No, for me, of course, as most likely, as I get to my last one.
Yes, with your last comment.
Can I say he's dying? This is the second time he's dying. He will even die the third time. Chapter 47, he had called.
Died.
He had said, when the time drew near, the chapter 47, verse 29, that Israel must die, he called his son Joseph and said to him, he knew he's about to die. Joseph, come, we need to talk. And then chapter 48 expresses, after these things, he didn't die. After these things, his sons came. Joseph was told your father is sick. This is time Joseph thinks that he's about to die. Of course, again, verse 21, chapter 41 says, and he was about to die. And then chapter 49, again, remember, this was just him. Chapter 49, again, he also notices, now this is serious, I'm about to die. What I wanted to do was compare with Isaiah 38. Of course, it's not relevant, but I'm using the words. I want to use the words here. Isaiah 38, verse 1. When Hezekiah was sick and he was about to die, a message was sent to him, set your house in order, for you shall die and not live. Very, very, very important for me. Put your house in order. What Jacob wants to do is put his house in order, so that there will be no questions of who is first, who is last, who is blessed more, or who's my words and God's word. I think he wanted to put his house in order. Many of us have not put our house in order. And I'm talking to some of us who think we are young. We still have got time on our life. These days is not when you die from old age. Those days people used to die from old age. These days you can die. People don't want to do a will. People don't want to bequeath their children. They have not planned. There is so much upheaval when somebody dies. You even think like, he could not even sort these things out,
Right.
I don't know, he's a chaplain, he should tell me. Sometimes it feels I have been a pastor for people who have cancer. I'm sorry to put it like that. And just before they die, they get like a 1 week off from the hospital to heal. I don't know if it's, it's like you get well. Then all of us are thanking God, then we thank you, our prayers have been answered. Then 1 week later, somebody dies.
That's right.
For me, these days
like
I interpret it as,
well.
God was giving you a chance to sort.
Go and sort out things.
Put your house in order. That is what I'm thinking here. Put your house in order. The parents who are here.
Of course, we are not saying that for them who are healing.
No. Maybe those of us who are young here who are looking at me. No, I'm talking of course, even you don't know.
Yeah, you never know.
You never know. Put your house in order means, it doesn't mean inheritance only. No. It means there's somebody you have an issue with. There's somebody that you need to clarify. There's some things you're dead, and even your own wife doesn't know what you own.
That's right.
It's not fair. Look at Jacob, what he did. He did all the planning so early that he thought he's about to die. He didn't die. Then the next time, until when he finally dies, everything was sorted.
Wow. And Pastor, your final
No, really, I think he has put it quite clearly. We need to be ready at all times. We need to do what is due us so that we make it easier. The lesson of leadership here is make it easier for the next stage to proceed on. Don't sabotage things, like there's one leader of the Bible said that, when will these things happen? He was told that after your reign, one of the kings, he said, it's okay.
It's still Hezekiah.
He said, it's okay.
If it's after me, then I'm fine.
That is very tragic,
Thank you very much, pastors. And of course, our dear viewer, we come to the end of our analysis today. Remember, it was the Bible journey, the book of Genesis, chapter 48. Next time we meet, we'll be in Genesis chapter 49. Thank you very much for being with us. Remember to go on with this discussion online on our social media platforms, that is on Twitter at Hope_Kenya and on Facebook, Hope Channel Kenya. You can also find me at Nick Ratemo, or not really Nick Ratemo, at Nick's Enquiry. Find me on Twitter and Facebook. God bless you. Until next time, maybe a word of prayer from Pastor Abuya.
Father in heaven, what a blessing getting into your word. Every day it is new and fresh, and we get a perspective of what you desire for our lives. May you bless us through the wonderful insights through Genesis chapter 48, so we can have a better and clearer picture of your will upon our lives. We love you, Father. We praise you and thank you for hearing our prayer. For we pray in Jesus' name.
Amen.